expert. Now we move on to our next story on the latest on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Russia says they have completed another prisoner of war exchange with Ukraine while also claiming control of the Moskivka region in Ukraine's Kharkiv area. The Kremlin has declined to predict if a Putin-Trump meeting will happen this year, citing global instability. Moscow continues its special military operation in Ukraine, favoring diplomacy but acknowledging Kyiv's unpredictability. Talks with Ukraine are still ongoing, with the next round expected next week. Meanwhile, Russia's state atomic energy corporation, Rosatom, has reported no incidents at the Bushehr nuclear power plant in Iran last night. Rosatom head Alexei Likhachev said that they hope all messages sent yesterday have reached Israeli leadership and assured the public that work at the plant continues as normal. However, Russia has warned that a strike on the Bushehr plant could trigger a disaster comparable to the 1986 Chernobyl catastrophe. With the situation still evolving, Likhachev confirmed that dozens of Russian specialists have been evacuated from Iran. However, he added that for now, Russia is still prepared to keep its workers at Bushehr and is ready for any scenario, including rapid evacuation if necessary. President Vladimir Putin also said this week that there are currently 250 Russian personnel at the Bushehr plant. And lastly, a Russian drone strike on the Ukrainian city of Odessa has left one person dead and at least 14 injured. According to local authorities, Ukraine's Air Force reported that Russia launched 86 drones overnight, with 34 shot down and 36 neutralized through electronic warfare or found to be decoys. Now we have guest discussion on this topic. Daniel Wagner is joining us. He's the CEO of Country Risk Solutions, joining us live from US Portland. Thank you, Daniel, for joining us today. Welcome to NewsX World. With Russia launching 86 drones in a single night, is Ukraine's air defense still holding the line effectively, or are we seeing signs of saturation and vulnerability?
It's pretty clear that the Ukrainian air defenses are under pressure. And the question really is, to what extent can it be replenished and when? And of course, this raises the larger question about its offensive capabilities in the absence of strong or unflinching US support. Now, if the Europeans have to pick up the slack, and that seems to be the direction we're heading, that raises a bunch of other questions. For example, the extent to which they will be able to maintain their own unity, the extent to which they will have the funds to increase support for Ukraine, the extent to which public support will remain intact in Europe. And the problem with getting any European action, of course, is that they need to be unanimous in order to get things done. And that raises all sorts of potential issues.
And building on that, how do repeated prisoner of war exchanges factor into the broader conflict? Are they signs of a back-channel thaw or merely tactical humanitarian optics?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I think this is a sort of a natural thing to do at any point in a war if both sides are agreeable. I don't think it portends any particular significance in terms of the strategic objectives of both sides. My hope is that those exchanges will continue.
And now moving to Kremlin, the Kremlin has avoided confirming a potential Putin and US President Donald Trump's meeting. What would such a meeting signal to US allies, especially in Europe and the NATO?
Well, I think this is one of those instances where I would say seeing is believing. Putin, of course, has been viewing this as a bit of a chessboard, and he continues to obfuscate and make moves that would be contrary to the objectives of peace. Trump, of course, is now a little preoccupied with what's going on in the Middle East. And so, unfortunately for Ukraine, their whole strategic positioning has shifted, not to their benefit, because of what's going on in the Middle East and other priorities that the US and, for example, other countries have. So I don't think that Ukraine is going to be disappearing from the scene, but it's pretty clear also with the G7 meeting and Ukraine not coming away with any new commitments for aid that they're in a precarious position.
And now that Russia has reminded us of the catastrophe in Chernobyl, how serious is Russia's warning about this Chernobyl-scale disaster if Israel strikes the Bushehr nuclear plant? Is this legitimate concern or just maybe strategic deterrence?
Well, I think there's some legitimacy to it. We just have to look at what happened in Chernobyl to know that it's certainly a possibility. I don't know to what extent the Iranians have actually taken Bushehr offline or not, and I don't know to what extent that will necessarily impact fallout from direct attacks on Bushehr. But I can say that's certainly a legitimate concern.
And given the evacuation of Russian specialists from Iran, and also Russia has confirmed that 250 people are still there or were there, what are the commercial and diplomatic risks for Russia's nuclear partnerships abroad?
Russia's under pressure in a more general context, not just in this, in terms of their trade with Iran. They have a very significant shadow trade in oil and other commodities with Iran. And they, like the Chinese, will be impacted by what is happening in Iran and what could be happening in Iran in the future. If the Iranians decide to curtail the flow of oil out of the Persian Gulf, that's going to affect Russia as well as China and many other countries, including India.
And is there a risk of accidental escalation between Russia and Israel, especially with Russian personnel still operating in Iran? From what we know, that Russia hasn't evacuated all of their people yet.
I would say that's less likely. Neither the Israelis nor the Russians nor anyone else want to escalate the possibility that there's going to be an accidental war. I think they're treading very carefully around one another at the present time. The idea being they both have full plates and they don't need any new problems as a result of something that was unanticipated.
Thank you very much, Daniel Wagner, for joining us today and